Her scream that night was the prettiest sound I ever heard. Just take a second and think about the sheer, twisted malice behind those words. It's the kind of sentence that literally makes your blood run cold, right? It perfectly encapsulates the sinister mind of a predator who actually takes joy in terror. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we've got a really compelling explainer lined up for you. We're deconstructing the anatomy of suspense in the terrifying horror story, Never Trust Your Neighbors. We're going to pop the hood on this narrative to see exactly how suspense is engineered, piece by piece, to create this totally unforgettable sense of dread. So let's dive right into this. It's a fascinating question, isn't it? How exactly do you take the completely mundane, a quiet neighborhood, a friendly neighbor, a totally ordinary afternoon, and twist it into a masterclass in psychological terror? Well, the genius of this specific story lies in its structure. It doesn't rely on ghosts or supernatural monsters. No, it relies on the monsters that live right next door, just hiding in plain sight. Which brings us to our first phase, establishing ultimate vulnerability. To make a horror story really work, you have to establish the stakes early on. The author grounds the terror here in a parent's absolute worst nightmare. We have our protagonist, Silas, who is this fiercely protective single father. But the real key to the vulnerability in this story is his 9-year-old daughter, Ren. Ren is completely mute. You know, in horror storytelling, stripping away a character's physical ability to just scream for help, it amplifies that helplessness tenfold. Our inciting incident capitalizes on this perfectly. Ren wakes up silently screaming because there is a strange man standing right in her bedroom doorway. She can't yell to her dad, she can only tremble. It's an incredibly tense, claustrophobic opening. So because of that trauma, they create a system to feel safe again. And what's really masterful here is how the author takes this touching father-daughter coping mechanism and plants it as a crucial narrative seed. Silas flicks the lamp to communicate. 4 flicks from him means good night. 6 flicks from Rin means good night, Dad. It's this beautiful, quiet little ritual. But, as we know with horror, establishing a rule like this almost guarantees it's going to be tested later. Moving on to Section 2, creating a false security. Once you establish vulnerability, you have to lull the audience into a false sense of safety. For 2 whole years, life is normal. That flicker ritual keeps the dark at bay. But then, it's just a regular afternoon. 3 p.m., the school confirms Ren got on her bus, but she never walks through the front door. Just 1 hour later, Silas and his older daughter, Callie, are absolutely tearing up the neighborhood. They sprint to the bus stop, breathing heavy, and then boom, they find her bright pink backpack and her favorite True Moo milk just discarded in a ditch. The pace goes from totally calm to a frantic, heart-pounding nightmare in an instant. And right then, enter Mr. Reeve. Just when Silas is completely losing his mind with grief, this neighbor appears. He's handing out flyers all across town. He's going way above and beyond what the local police are doing. He even asks to pray in Ren's room. For Silas, Reeve is an absolute godsend, creating this complex layer of trust. But for Callie, the older daughter, her instincts are just screaming. She finds him incredibly creepy. This split in perception is such a classic horror tool. Who do you actually trust when your world is falling apart? That brings us to Phase 3, the art of misdirection. A good psychological thriller will actively try to deceive you by laying narrative traps. We've all heard the term red herring, right? A clue designed to mislead or distract from the actual truth. Well, in this story, Mr. Reeve acts as the guiding hand for that misdirection. He pulls Silas aside and very subtly directs his frantic attention toward a different neighbor, a supposedly creepy guy living in a brown house down the street who has a history. Silas takes the bait completely, and this brilliantly illustrates how the author uses a perfectly placed prop to spring the trap. Silas breaks into this guy's home, looks into the innocent neighbor's kitchen, and sees a bright pink backpack. His mind instantly connects it to Ren's actual pink backpack found in the ditch. He attacks the man, nearly beats him to death, and almost lands himself in jail. It derails the entire search, it alienates Silas from the cops, and it exhausts him. It's a masterful, violent distraction engineered by the real culprit. Now we hit Section 4, the wolf in disguise. The truth can only stay buried for so long. The frantic energy drops, and this slow, creeping dread takes over. 6. That one single number changes everything. Defeated, exhausted, and laying in his missing daughter's bed in the pitch dark, Silas is just staring out the window. Across the street, at the home of his super helpful neighbor, Mr. Reeve, a broken living room bulb is flickering. But it's not random.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It stops. It's the goodnight signal. The realization hits Silas like a freight train. I mean, this is peak dramatic irony right here. Silas, and we, the audience, suddenly realize that this kind, praying man who has been helping the search is the exact same monster who stood in Wren's doorway 2 years ago. But Mr. Reeve doesn't know that Silas knows that. The power dynamic shifts in a split second.
Now it becomes this intense psychological thriller of gathering proof. Callie uses her phone to secretly record into Reeve's house and spots that his basement walls are painted the exact same pink as Wren's bedroom. The implication? Complete, sickening premeditation. Then Silas stalks Reeves to the grocery store. He watches this man casually buy a 12-pack of True Moo milk, Wren's favorite drink. It's such a mundane, normal action, but when you put it in this context, it is utterly chilling. The author meticulously lays these traps to build an absolutely undeniable case. Finally, we reach number 5, the claustrophobic climax. The police are called, the warrant is issued, and they breach the house. They push past Reeve, who is playing the wounded, innocent friend to a T. Silas and Callie follow the detective down into that pink basement, holding their breath, just ready to bring Wren home. And then, the pink basement was completely empty. I mean, the floor literally drops out from under you here. Just imagine the sheer panic of that moment. Silas actually begins to doubt his own sanity. He breaks down and apologizes to Reeve. And Reeve, playing the ultimate psychopath, puts a gentle hand on Silas's shoulder, saying, "It's okay, I'll still help you look." He almost gets away with it. Literally the perfect crime. But then, fast, frantic pounding echoes from directly behind the drywall. The mask finally slips. Reeve makes a desperate bolt for the stairs but gets violently tackled by the police. The tension just shatters. The detective kicks down that fake drywall, and there she is. Wren was standing on the other side, her hair matted, her fists raw and bleeding from fighting for her life against that wall. It's this massive, emotional release for the reader. The physical reveal completely destroys the facade the villain spent years building. Later on at the hospital, after her bloody hands are all bandaged up, Wren, who still can't speak, grabs a notepad. She writes a simple question to her father. "Did you see me flashing?" It's a heartbreaking but beautiful conclusion to the narrative arc. That tiny little ritual, born out of fear 2 years prior, is exactly what saved her life in the dark. Which leaves us with this final thought. The brilliance of this horror story isn't in cheap jump scares or monsters hiding under the bed. It's in the complete subversion of safety. Because if the most terrifying monsters don't hide in the woods, but actually bring you breakfast burritos and smile at you from across the street, how well do you truly know your neighbors? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.